Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I'm going to chat with you guys a little bit about, something that people need to remember when it comes to their training, and understanding that for everyone in your program, you need to have some sort of foundational exercises that are the basis of your programming. They are your anchors. And I'll get people who will say, well, not everyone's a powerlifter. They don't need to focus specifically on the classic big three. And you know what? I'm not going to disagree with that. Hey, you guys are right. I program around the big three for even my Gen Pop clients, but guess what? The classic squat, bench, and deadlift are not the be-all, end-all of exercises. Sure, of course not. Right? Of course not. And I think all of us understand this. We all agree on this. This is not a point of controversy. And you'll have people who will say, well, what about just for muscle building purposes, right? What if I'm just trying to get really, really jacked? The exercises that I pick doesn't matter, because tension is tension and progressive overload is progressive overload. Well, yes, you're not wrong. That is not an incorrect statement. However, I will preface it by saying, but something better be. In other words, if you do not have foundational exercises that you are using for an extended period of time as the basis for your training, your base builders to build most of your muscle, several exercises, 3 or 4 exercises, 5 exercises. If you do not have those, then how are you measuring progressive overload? What is your standard? What are you doing? Because otherwise, then it's, what are you going to do? Change all your exercises every 2 or 3 weeks and just try to get progressive overload? Right? That's not a viable strategy. That's not a viable strategy, guys. And you're going to need some really big exercises to do all your base building. Okay? You're going to need some big exercises, and you probably need to be doing some fairly heavy work on those movements with progressive overload. And you're going to have to still approach it the same way. In other words, okay, let's say that, so the squat, bench, and deadlift, the classics, you say, okay, I want an incline bench. By the way, I'm not telling you guys to do this. I'm not saying these are the ones you should pick. I'm just throwing some stuff out there. Well, I'm going to do incline bench. Okay. Or someone says weighted dips. I think that's a good way to get hurt, is to treat those as a primary. So I'm not going to say that. So, okay, incline bench. All right, incline bench is a great exercise. Okay, there are definitely worse foundational exercises you could pick. Like, well, I'm not going to do the barbell squat. I'm going to do safety bar squat with a shoulder width stance instead of a power squat. So Olympic style with the safety bar, right? Okay, I feel my quads and everything a lot more when I do that. I get a little more upper back. Okay, great. So you're going to pick that. No problem with that. All right, what about your posterior chain? They might say, well, I'm going to do a low handle trap bar deadlift, because you better not pick the high handle. Anyone who tells me that the conventional deadlift isn't a great hypertrophy exercise, mainly because, well, you're moving a heavy weight in a partial. You go to a high handle trap bar, you're doing all of that 5 times worse. Okay, so you come over and you say low handle trap bar, or how about a Romanian deadlift? Right? They're like, I get a better stretch in my hamstrings. I feel it's a better posterior chain exercise. Okay, great. So that's the 3 you've decided to go with, right? And then whatever you're going to do for your back and everything. So you're still going to need to treat those in the same way. You're still going to need to program off of those as foundational exercises. And I'm not saying you have to keep those the same, but you're going to need to do so for an extended period of time. You might do that for 6 months, and then maybe you pick some other lifts because you're just trying to get really jacked. Okay, all right, fine. So you don't want to keep them constant year after year. Okay, cool. You're still going to need to treat them as foundational exercises. You're still going to need to program around them and say, okay, I know that these 3 or 4 exercises that I've picked, that when I progress on these, my 6 rep maxes, my 10 rep maxes, whatever. As they go up and I get stronger at those, I make more gains, right? These are what I'm doing to build my base, and then everything else is to fill in the gaps, right? Because you're going to do your curls and extensions and all that other stuff to fill in the gaps, right? Probably what you're going to do, and that's perfectly reasonable. That is a perfectly reasoned approach. But you're going to have to do it that way. You're still going to need to treat them the same way that we're going to treat the squat, bench, and deadlift for base building. You're going to need to progress on them. And you are going to need to look at the exercises that you fill the gaps in with, not just to fill the hypertrophy gaps, but to look at those lifts and to get better at them. In other words, let's say you've picked the incline bench press. Okay. So what are you going to do to make sure it gets better? Oh, okay. You might want to think about that. You are still going to want to look at that lift and let's say whatever you're working off of an 8 rep max is your performance metric. What can you do for your heaviest 8 rep sets? Well, you're still going to want to look at the reps where you're grinding on it and say, okay, where's my weakest link? Is it my delt? Is it my triceps? What's holding me back on that lift? What is my sticking point on that lift? You're still going to need to do that. And you're probably going to want to use another exercise to fill in the gaps. Like maybe you look at it and go, man, those front delts are really limiting me on that incline bench. So then you're going to do, I don't know, maybe a seated dumbbell press, right? Okay? Or a front raise, to bring that along. Maybe you're going to look at it and go, man, I'm really struggling with those lockouts on it. It's my triceps. Maybe I should do a JM press, to bring those triceps up that are limiting it. Right? Another big exercise to bring up that weak link so that you continue to get better at it. Right? Aren't we still going to need to treat it the same way? Of course you are, because you need that incline. You might look at it and say, man, I really need, to be able to incline 225 pounds, it's just over 100 kilos. For 8, that's really where I need to be to get that development I need. And then it's stalling. Well, you're going to need to address the weak points just like we do on the big 3, if you're serious about it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.